Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a number that, well, it actually made me feel physically tired when I read it.
Yeah. I think I know exactly the one you mean.
The number is 174.
174. It's a heavy number.
According to the research we are looking at today, the average person now processes the equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of information every single day.
It is just a staggering statistic. And, to put that in context, if you were living in 1986, that number was about 40 newspapers.
Wow.
So in less than 40 years, the volume of noise blasting into our brains has more than quadrupled.
And I don't know about you, but my brain definitely hasn't quadrupled in size since 1986.
Right, exactly. The hardware hasn't changed at all, but the software demands have just exploded.
Yeah.
And that creates the crisis we are diving into today.
Because we're living in an environment that is...
Actively engineered to destroy your attention. Yes.
We are ancient biological machines trying to interface with a digital fire hose.
That's a great way to put it. A digital fire hose.
And the result isn't just that you are a little distracted or, a bit scatterbrained. It is that your baseline ability to pay attention, to actually think deeply, is collapsing.
It is breaking down entirely.
So when we talk about focus today, we aren't talking about some nice-to-have soft skill. We are talking about a superpower.
It really is a superpower now.
Yeah.
In a world of total fragmentation, the person who can hold a thought for an hour is king.
That is exactly why we are doing this deep dive. We have pulled together a massive stack of research today.
A huge stack.
We are anchoring this whole conversation on Peter Hollins' book, The Science of Powerful Focus. But because this topic is just so huge, we have also layered in insights from Johann Hari's Stolen Focus, James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Near Eel's Indistractable.
Yes, and Cal Newport's Deep Work.
Think of it as the Avengers of productivity. We are taking Hollins' behavioral framework and reinforcing it with the absolute best neurological and sociological data available.
And the core mission here for you, the listener, is pretty specific. I think a lot of us feel like our inability to focus is a moral failing.
Absolutely.
Like you think, I am just lazy or I am getting stupid as I get older. But Hollins argues that focus isn't a personality trait at all. You aren't simply born with it or without it.
Right. He completely reframes focus as a trained neurological skill.
Yeah.
It is not a virtue. It is a mechanism.
A mechanism.
Yeah. If you can't focus, it's not because you are a bad person. It's because you don't have the manual for the machine. And Hollins' book is essentially that manual. It is a behavioral guide for reclaiming control over the mind.
So today we're going to walk you through that manual. We're going to look at the biology of why we spiral into YouTube holes, the actual literal cost of those quick checks of email.
They are never quick.
Never. And then we are going to get into the protocols, how to manage your energy, design your environment, and actually do the deep work.
And I think we need to start by dismantling the biggest myth in this entire space.
The procrastination thing.
Exactly. The idea that procrastination is about being lazy.
This was the first thing in the research that really stopped me in my tracks, because when I am staring at a blank document and I suddenly decide, hey, I need to reorganize my bookshelf right now, or scrub the grout in the shower.
Very important task.
Very urgent. I definitely feel lazy. I feel like I'm avoiding work because I just lack discipline.
You are avoiding something, but it is not the work itself. Hollins argues, and this is backed by a massive amount of modern psychological research, that procrastination is actually an emotion regulation problem.
Emotion regulation.
Yes. It is not about time management. It is about mood management.
So I am not avoiding the spreadsheet because it's hard. I'm avoiding the feeling the spreadsheet gives me.
Precisely. Your brain looks at that spreadsheet and it doesn't see data entry. It sees a threat.
A threat.
Yes. Maybe it's fear of failure.
Right.
Like, what if I mess this up? Maybe it's perfectionism. I don't have the energy to do this perfectly right now. Or maybe it's just anxiety or profound boredom. These are negative emotions. And your brain is biologically wired to protect you from negative emotions.
So procrastination is basically a defense mechanism.
It is a shield.
Hmm.
Your brain says, this task makes me feel bad. You know what makes me feel good? Instagram. Or eating a snack in the kitchen.
Always the snack.
Right. So it pivots you to the source of immediate dopamine to soothe the negative emotion.
Yeah.
You aren't lazy. You are technically engaging in emotional self-preservation. It is just extremely maladaptive.
That reframing helps so much. It turns it from a character flaw into a glitch in the system. And Hollins actually breaks this down into types, which I found really helpful for
The
self-diagnosis.
procrastination profiles, yes.
He talks about the arousal type.
Oh, thrill seekers. These are the people who wait until the deadline is just screaming at them because they actually need the adrenaline rush to override the boredom. They rely on the panic to focus.
I feel incredibly seen right now. The whole I work better under pressure thing has been my excuse since college.
It's a classic.
I used to write papers at 4 in the morning, not because I was busy, but because I literally needed the physical fear of failing the class to force my hands to type.
And it's a very common rationalization,
Uh-huh.
but it is entirely unsustainable. It burns you out. Then you have the avoidant type.
Right. What's their deal?
The avoidant type is paralyzed by the fear of judgment. Success or failure, honestly. They worry that if they try their hardest and fail, it proves they aren't smart or capable.
So if I don't try, I can't be judged.
Exactly. It's self-sabotage as a protective measure. If I throw the game, you can't say I lost because I was bad at it. I lost because I didn't care. So they just don't start.
And the third were?
The indecisive type. This person gets totally paralyzed by the complexity of the task.
Analysis paralysis.
Yes, they can't figure out the absolute perfect place to start, so they don't start at all. But all three of these types share that exact same root mechanism. They are prioritizing their current emotional state over their future well-being.
But what is actually happening physically inside the skull when that happens? Because it feels like a war.
It is a war.
One part of me really wants to work, I know I need to work, and another part is screaming to run away.
It literally is a biological war between two specific parts of your brain. In the red corner, you have the limbic system, specifically the amygdala,
The lizard brain.
the ancient lizard brain. It has been with us for millions of years. It really only cares about two things, immediate safety and immediate pleasure. It wants the marshmallow now.
And in the blue corner?
The prefrontal cortex, the adult in the room. This is the newest part of the brain, evolutionarily speaking. It handles long-term planning, complex decision-making, and impulse control.
The problem, as I understand it from the reading, is that this fight is not fair at all.
It is completely rigged,
Yeah.
and it all comes down to processing speed. The amygdala reacts to a stimulus, like a stressful email or a ping on your phone, in about 1/32 of a second.
1/32 of a second.
It is lightning fast. It sees threat or reward, and it fires instantly.
And the prefrontal cortex.
It takes about 3 full seconds to boot up and assess the situation logically.
3 seconds versus 1/32 of a second, that is a massive head start for the lizard brain.
A massive head start. By the time your rational brain says, hey, we should really answer this email so we don't get fired, the amygdala has already flooded your system with cortisol to make you run away, or dopamine to make you check Twitter.
So the physical action has already started.
Yes, you have physically clicked the new tab before your executive function is even clocked in for work.
That actually makes me feel a little better. It's not that I have zero willpower. It's that I am fighting a biological lag.
You are fighting millions of years of evolution. We are wired to survive the saber-toothed tiger, not the unread Slack message. Our biology strongly prioritizes the immediate reaction.
So if the game is rigged, how do we stop losing? We will get to the specific tactical interventions in a bit, how to basically buy those 3 seconds back. But I want to talk about the cost of losing first.
The hidden costs.
Because I think we minimize it. We think, oh, I just checked my phone for 30 seconds, no big deal, I'll get right back to work.
That is the second most dangerous lie we tell ourselves, right after I'm just lazy. And this brings us to the concept of attention residue.
Attention residue. This was coined by Sophie Leroy, right? The descriptions of this in the book were haunting.
Haunting is the right word. Her research is terrifying for anyone who thinks they are good at multitasking. She found that when you switch from task A, let's say writing a report, to task B, like checking an email, your attention does not follow you instantly.
It leaves a piece behind.
Yes. A residue of your cognitive focus remains completely stuck on task A.
Okay, so I check the email, I see a request from my boss, I don't answer it, I just look at it. Then I immediately go back to my report.
But you aren't actually back at the report. Not fully. A large chunk of your processing power is still chewing on that email from your boss. The residue is thick.
So I'm sitting there typing, but my brain is in 2 places.
You are physically looking at the report, but neurologically, you are splitting your resources.
Yeah.
You are processing the anxiety of the email while trying to process the logic of the report.
And what does that actually do to performance?
It tanks it completely. There was a study cited in the material, and this is often misquoted, but the core finding really holds up. The drop in functional IQ from this constant context switching is roughly 10 to 15 points.
10 to 15 points of IQ.
Yes.
That is the difference between being average and being gifted, or being average and being borderline impaired.
To put that in perspective, that is the cognitive equivalent of missing a full night of sleep. Or, as one study noted, it has more than twice the negative impact of smoking cannabis.
So the modern office worker sitting there toggling between Slack, email, and a spreadsheet all day long is effectively working drunk.
Functionally, yes. You are operating with a severe cognitive handicap.
Yeah.
Earl Miller, a neuroscientist at MIT, uses a really great analogy for this in Stolen Focus. He says, to imagine your conscious mind as a nightclub.
Okay, I like this. A nightclub, velvet ropes.
It is a very exclusive club. The capacity inside is tiny. You can only fit one or two thoughts on the dance floor at once. Now, at the door, you have a bouncer. The bouncer is your attention.
And the bouncer's job is to keep the riffraff out.
Right. To manage the line. But in the modern world, the line outside the club is thousands of people long. Emails, texts, news alerts, anxieties, sudden ideas. When we think we are multitasking, we aren't letting everyone in at once. That is biologically impossible.
So what are we doing?
What we are doing is making the bouncer kick one thought out and let a new one in, over and over again, every few seconds.
Rapid task switching.
Exactly. And the bouncer gets tired.
That sounds exhausting just to think about.
It is the switch cost effect.
Yeah.
Every single time you swap tasks, your brain has to reconfigure its chemical state. It burns glucose. It takes time. When the bouncer is tired, he starts letting the wrong people in. Distractions slip past the velvet rope. Irrelevant thoughts clutter up the dance floor.
And that totally explains why at 4 in the afternoon, I can't even write a simple 2-sentence email. My bouncer is passed out in the corner.
Passed out cold. And this leads to what researchers call the screw-up effect, where error rates go through the roof and a massive creativity drain.
Because you can't be creative if you're constantly switching.
You cannot connect complex ideas if the bouncer is constantly revolving the door. Real innovation requires the bouncer to lock the door and let the thoughts on the dance floor mingle for a while.
This leads us perfectly into the technology aspect, because the environment is actively trying to tackle the bouncer. Nir Eyal talks about this in Indistractable. He distinguishes between internal and external triggers.
This is a crucial distinction to make. We love to blame the pings and dings. Those are the external triggers. And sure, they are absolutely designed to be addictive. Eyal calls the smartphone a slot machine in your pocket because it operates on intermittent variable rewards.
Which is exactly the same psychology used in casino gambling. You pull the lever by checking the phone, and you don't know if you will get a reward like a text message or nothing at all.
That uncertainty is what spikes the dopamine.
It hacks the reward loop.
It does. But Eyal argues that the external triggers are only half the story. Often, we check the phone not because it rang, but because of an internal trigger.
Like what kind of internal trigger?
Boredom, loneliness, uncertainty, a difficult moment in work. We feel a pang of internal discomfort, and we reflexively reach for the digital pacifier.
So if things get hard, I just grab the phone to numb out.
Yes. And if you don't deal with the internal trigger, the fact that you are bored or anxious, you will find a distraction even if you lock your phone in a safe.
You'll just find something else.
You will start cleaning your desk.
Yeah.
You will stare at the wall. You will create distraction to soothe the itch.
So the phone isn't the root cause. It is just the easiest symptom.
It is the path of least resistance. And this is why the common advice to just put the phone away often fails if you don't address the underlying emotion. You have to recognize, I am checking this because I feel stuck on this paragraph, not I am checking this because I need to see the news.
There was one stat in Hari's book that I found almost funny, in a tragic sort of way. He talks about teenagers and their perception of their own focus.
Oh, the supertaskers.
Yeah. The average teenager believes they can follow 6 or 7 forms of media at the exact same time without any loss of comprehension whatsoever.
And the science says that is a complete delusion. It is physically impossible. But because the brain rewards the novelty of the switch with a tiny hit of dopamine, every time they change screens, they feel productive.
They feel like they are crushing it.
They feel totally engaged. But if you test their recall or their synthesis of the information, it is essentially non-existent. They are functionally drunk in terms of cognitive impairment, but they feel like they are flying.
So we have established the problem clearly. Our biology, the amygdala, wants to run away from hard things. The environment is hitting us with 174 newspapers of data, and our habit of switching is making us functionally stupid.
That's the grim baseline reality.
Let's pivot to the solution, because Hollins is very clear throughout the book. this is fixable, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we view our resources. He talks about moving from time management to energy management.
This is the major paradigm shift. Most of us plan our day in blocks of time. I will sit at this desk from 9 to 5. But your brain does not work on a flat line. It works in waves.
These are the ultradian rhythms.
Yes. Everyone has heard of circadian rhythms, your 24-hour sleep and wake cycle. Ultradian rhythms are the shorter cycles that happen within the day. Research shows the brain can only maintain high-intensity focus for about 90 minutes.
That is the hard cap, just 90 minutes.
For absolute peak performance, yes. After 90 minutes, you deplete your local stores of glucose and essential neurotransmitters. You hit a biological wall. If you try to push past that wall without a break, you enter what they call garbage time.
Define garbage time for me.
It is when your prefrontal cortex, the smart part of the brain, starts shutting down to conserve energy.
Yeah.
To keep you awake and moving, your body starts pumping stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
So you feel wired, but you are cognitively dull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are reading the same sentence 3 times in a row. You are making careless mistakes. You are irritable.
So that 3 p.m. slump where I am just staring at the screen and eating sugar, that is my body screaming that I missed the wave.
You are running on absolute fumes. The protocol, Hollins suggests, and this is backed by research from the U.S. Army and top sports psychologists, is to ride the wave. Work hard for 90 minutes, then take a 20-minute break.
And this is key. What actually counts as a break? Because I usually just switch tabs to Twitter or read an article.
That is not a break. That is just different information processing.
Yeah.
You are still taxing the visual cortex and the attention centers of the brain. A real break requires completely disengaging.
So what should I do?
Walk away, look at a wall, close your eyes. You have to let the bouncer sit down for a minute. You need to stop the input.
This energy management concept also connects to the Yerkes-Dodson curve. It sounds highly technical, but it's basically the Goldilocks zone of stress, right?
Right. Picture a standard bell curve. On the far left, you have low arousal, boredom. If a task is too easy, your brain disengages. It can't focus because it simply doesn't care.
And on the far right of the curve.
High arousal, panic, crisis mode.
And what happens to the brain in crisis mode?
Tunnel vision. Literally, your peripheral awareness shuts down. Your working memory, which is the RAM of your brain, shrinks. You can't hold complex thoughts because your brain is preparing for a physical fistfight, not a math problem.
So the goal is the top of the curve, moderate stress.
That is the sweet spot. That is where flow lives. The challenge is just high enough to keep you deeply engaged, but not so high that you panic and shut down.
So as a listener, as a worker, how do I manipulate this? If I'm procrastinating because I am bored, which is low arousal, what do I do?
You need to artificially spike the stress. Gamify it. Set a timer. Tell yourself, I have to finish this in 20 minutes or I can't have my morning coffee. Create a sense of false urgency. You need to wake the amygdala up just enough to get it interested in the game.
And what if I'm procrastinating because I'm overwhelmed? High arousal.
You need to significantly lower the stakes. This is where micro steps come in. Don't say, I need to write the book today. Say, I need to open the Word document and write one single sentence. You have to back your brain away from the panic ledge so the prefrontal cortex can safely come back online.
We really can't talk about physiology without talking about sleep. I know, everyone says get more sleep, but the specific detail in the research about local sleep was totally new to me and terrifying.
It is straight out of a horror movie, honestly. Researchers have found that when you are sleep deprived, your brain doesn't just get tired as a whole, uniform unit. Specific groups of neurons can fall asleep while you are physically awake.
Wait, so I could be sitting in a meeting, eyes open, nodding along, and part of my brain is technically asleep.
Yes, it is called local sleep. The neurons responsible for, say, vigilance or complex language processing might just go completely offline for a few seconds. That is the gliss you feel, the blank stare where you lose track of time.
It is like a rolling blackout in the city of the mind.
That is a perfect analogy. And it happens because you haven't given the brain enough time at night to take out the trash.
The glymphatic system.
Right. When you are in deep sleep, the brain cells actually shrink slightly to allow cerebrospinal fluid to wash away metabolic toxins, neurotoxins that build up naturally during the day.
It is a literal dishwasher cycle for your brain.
Literally.
Yeah.
If you don't sleep enough, the trash stays in the streets. It gums up the neurological signals. That is why the research says staying awake for 19 hours renders you cognitively equivalent to being legally drunk. You cannot focus through a toxic buildup.
So if you think you are hustling by cutting your sleep to 4 hours, you are actually just making yourself functionally stupid.
You are trading competence for garbage time. You might be awake longer, but you are producing terrible work.
Okay, so we need to ride the 90-minute energy wave, find the stress sweet spot, and sleep so we aren't brain drunk. Let's move to part 4, tactical interventions. How do we design a life that makes all of this easier?
We have to look closely at environment design. James Clear has the ultimate quote on this in Atomic Habits. He says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems."
I love that quote. We think we can just willpower our way through a messy desk or a buzzing phone.
And you just can't. Willpower is a battery. It drains.
Yeah.
Every single time you have to consciously decide not to check your phone, you burn a little bit of cognitive energy. Eventually the battery dies, and you check the phone.
So the solution is to remove the choice entirely.
Friction. That is the magic word here.
Yeah.
You want to add massive friction to bad behaviors and reduce friction for good ones. Focus is, at its core, simply the art of managing friction.
Give me a concrete example of this in action.
The phone is the best example. If it is on your desk, face up, the friction is practically zero.
Right.
If it's face down, the friction is slightly higher, but almost zero. If it is in the other room, inside a drawer, now the friction is high. You have to stand up, walk, open a door, open a drawer.
Right.
That tiny physical barrier is usually enough to stop the impulsive lizard brain reaction.
It gives the prefrontal cortex those 3 precious seconds it needs to wake up and say, wait, we actually don't need to do this.
Exactly. You are buying time for your adult brain to intervene. Hollins also talks about the don't-do list. We all have to-do lists, but a don't-do list is a binding contract with yourself. Like, I do not check email before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Or I do not have browser tabs open that aren't directly related to the task at hand.
It offloads the decision-making. You don't have to debate yourself in the heat of the moment. The rule is already set in stone.
Correct. You are pre-deciding, which saves an immense amount of cognitive energy for the actual work.
What about the inertia problem? Because I find the hardest part is always just starting. We talked about the amygdala freaking out at the massive size of a task. How do we trick it into starting?
The 10-minute rule. This is a negotiation tactic with your own brain. The amygdala is scared of the pain of a 3-hour project. So you say, okay, I am not going to do the project. I am just going to work for exactly 10 minutes. If I hate it after 10 minutes, I have full permission to stop and walk away.
It's a very low-stakes offer.
And the trick is, the pain isn't in the doing. The pain is almost always in the anticipation. Once you cross the threshold of starting, the dopamine of progress naturally kicks in. 99% of the time, the alarm goes off at 10 minutes, and you just keep going. You have successfully overcome the static friction.
There is also the 2-minute rule for the smaller stuff.
Right. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it right now. Don't write it down. Don't think about scheduling it. Just do it. This closes what they call open loops. Open loops act exactly like attention residue. They drag on your mind in the background. Closing them frees up mental bandwidth immediately.
Now, there were some weirder hacks in Hollins' book that I found really entertaining. Chewing gum.
It sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But the hard science is there. Chewing gum increases blood flow to the head and creates a mild insulin spike. It signals wakefulness to the brain. It's a very cheap biohack for alertness. If you are fading in the afternoon, chew some gum.
And doodling. I distinctly remember being yelled at for doodling in math class.
And your teacher was dead wrong. Jackie Andrade did a famous study that showed people who doodled during a boring, monotonous lecture actually recalled significantly more information than those who just sat there and didn't doodle.
How does that work, though? I would think drawing would be a distraction.
It anchors your attention. If a task is truly boring, your brain wants to fully escape. It wants to daydream about dinner or the weekend. That full daydream takes a lot of CPU power. Doodling takes up just enough cognitive bandwidth to keep the engine humming, preventing you from slipping into full fantasy mode, but it's simple enough that you can still actively listen.
It keeps the car in neutral instead of turning the engine off.
Exactly.
I am absolutely sending that clip to my high school algebra teacher.
Please do. They need to know.
And the last tactical one was nature, attention restoration theory.
We are biologically evolved to look at leaves and trees, not glowing glass screens. The research shows that even just looking at a picture of greenery for 40 seconds acts as a reset button for your directed attention. It actively replenishes your cognitive reserves. So, get a desk plant. Or at the very least, make your computer wallpaper a forest.
Okay, let's move to the holy grail here, part 5. We have managed our energy, we have hacked our environment with friction. Now we want to get into deep work and flow.
Deep work is a term coined by Cal Newport. It is defined as the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is the fundamental difference between being busy and being productive.
This is a huge distinction. Newport talks a lot about pseudo-productivity.
Yes, pseudo-productivity is all the highly visible stuff. Answering emails instantly, attending endless meetings, moving information around from one column to another. It looks like work to your boss. It feels like work to you. But it doesn't actually create any new value. Deep work is the stuff that moves the needle. Writing the strategy, coding the app, learning the complex skill.
But deep work is hard. It is deeply uncomfortable.
That is exactly why it is valuable. Because it is rare. Most people won't do it. To do it, Newport argues you need to use strict time blocking. You have to give every single minute of your workday a designated job.
This fights Parkinson's law, right?
Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself all day to write a single memo, it will take you all day. You will dilly-dally. If you block out 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and say, this is the only time I have, you create artificial urgency. You force the focus.
And if we do this right, we eventually hit flow.
The optimal state of human consciousness. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the father of flow research, says you need 3 specific things to hit it: clear goals, immediate feedback, and a perfect balance between your skill level and the challenge.
And what is the constraint?
You absolutely cannot multitask. Flow requires strict monotasking. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes of struggle and concentration just to enter a flow state. If you check your phone every 10 minutes, you're constantly resetting that clock. You will literally never experience flow. You're denying yourself the most satisfying experience work can possibly offer.
That is a depressing thought. We are robbing ourselves of the joy of work by checking our notifications. But I want to make a subtle distinction here before we move on. We have bashed distraction all episode, but Hollins and Hari also talk about the real value of mind wandering. Isn't that contradictory to everything we just said?
It definitely seems like it on the surface, but they are very different neurological states. Distraction is when you are actively trying to focus on a task and something pulls your attention away against your will. Mind wandering is when you intentionally let your mind roam free.
This is the default mode network.
Exactly. This brain network activates when we aren't focusing on any specific demanding task. It happens in the shower, on a long walk, while doing the dishes.
The shower principle. It's why we always get our best ideas right when we step in the shower.
Right. When the tight spotlight of focused attention is turned off, the brain starts making loose, ambient connections between distant ideas. That is where true creativity comes from. But here's the modern trap. If you fill every single spare moment with a podcast or a scroll through Instagram, you never let the default mode network activate.
You are constantly jamming external information in, so the brain never has a quiet moment to digest and connect the dots.
You are actively killing your own creativity by refusing to ever be bored. Boredom is the soil that creativity grows in. We desperately need to reclaim boredom.
So put the phone away in the elevator, look out the window on the train, let your mind just drift.
Be bored. It is incredibly good for you.
Let's bring this home with part 6, identity in the long game. Because all of this, the time blocking, the hiding the phone in the drawer, the flow states, it all requires discipline. And James Clear has a really interesting take on this. He says, don't focus on the goal, focus on the identity.
This is the psychological anchor for everything we've talked about. If you say, I'm trying to quit checking my phone so much, you are essentially saying you are a person who checks their phone, but is currently trying not to. You're in a state of resistance. But if you change the language and say, I am a focused person, or I am the kind of person who doesn't check email in the morning, it fundamentally changes the dynamic.
Every action is a vote.
Every single time you put the phone in the drawer, you cast a vote for that new identity. Over time, the pile of votes gets so high that you don't really need willpower anymore. It is just who you are. You don't have to resist the urge because the urge doesn't even fit your identity anymore.
But there is one final massive hurdle, the future self dilemma.
The Harvard study. This explains why building this discipline is just so universally hard for humans. When researchers put people in fMRI scanners and ask them to think about themselves 10 years from now, the brain lights up in the exact same way it does when thinking about a complete stranger.
We literally have no empathy for our own future selves.
None whatsoever. To your brain, future you is just some other guy. That is exactly why we dump all our work on him. We say, I'll just do it tomorrow. We think future me will magically have infinite energy and perfect discipline. We treat him like a pack mule.
So how do we fix that disconnect?
We have to actively bridge the gap. You have to visualize your future self, not as a stranger, but as a best friend that you are desperate to protect.
So I say, I am doing this hard thing now so future me can go home early tomorrow.
Exactly. I am suffering through this boring report right now, so future me isn't stressed out all weekend. That act of empathy creates the internal motivation for discipline.
And discipline isn't about constant suffering.
No, not at all. As Claire says, disciplined people don't actually have more willpower. They just spend less time in tempting situations. They design their life and their environment so they don't have to fight a biological war every 5 minutes.
So let's synthesize all of this for you listening. It is a massive amount of info to process. We have gone from the lightning-fast reaction of the amygdala to the heavy, lingering cost of attention residue, to writing the 90-minute energy waves, to the practical hacks of friction and environment design, and finally to this deep identity shift.
It is a full journey from the microbiology of the brain to the macro philosophy of how you live your life.
And the core message from Hollins really rings true after all this. You don't need more time. Everyone gets the exact same 24 hours. You need more control over your attention.
And that control is trainable. That is the most hopeful part of all this research. Your brain is highly plastic. You can train the bouncer at the club. You can strengthen the prefrontal cortex over time. You are not broken. You are just living in a world completely designed to dismantle your focus. And you finally have the manual to fight back.
In a distracted world, focus is leverage.
And leverage changes absolutely everything.
So here is the final provocative thought for everyone listening today. We just talked about the future self being treated as a stranger by our brains.
Right.
I want you to close your eyes. Well, unless you are driving. Please don't close your eyes if you are driving. But picture your future self, not 10 years from now, just tomorrow evening. If you treated that person not as a stranger and not even as yourself, but as a best friend you deeply love and want to help, how would your focus change right now? What is one single thing you would do differently in the next hour to make their life easier tomorrow?
That is the ultimate question to sit with.
And for a practical step today, don't try to do all 23 methods we discussed. Pick one. Maybe it is the 10-minute rule. Maybe it is putting the phone in the garage while you work. Just pick one thing to start training that superpower.
Cast just one vote for the new identity today.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Go reclaim your attention.
See you next time.